twin objects are not scary. Who does not notice who is embarrassed? On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, the older sister goes to work, and the younger sister spends time with her boyfriend. The arrangement is reversed on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. However, Joe Clark has been kept in the dark for the past 4 years. Joe Clark slowly wakes up from his sleep early in the morning. This marks the 4th year he has been with Tina. But he always feels like there is something wrong with their life. Let's break up. Tina turned around, looking at him in disbelief. She thought it was a special program prepared by Joe Clark. I have an important meeting today. Can we talk about it when I get back tonight? After speaking, Tina changed her clothes and left without looking back. He and Tina graduated in the same year. But his girlfriend is like a highly efficient work machine. In just a few years of hard work, she has earned a place for herself in society. She has become the manager of a large media company and leads hundreds of employees. Tina's career success has started to make Joe Clark anxious. Her boss has also urged Joe Clark to leave Tina more than once. However, Joe Clark's career development is not bad either. Just today, their teen short video account traffic exceeded 1 billion. The beautiful boss also promoted him to become the company's operations director. To celebrate Joe Clark's promotion, the boss personally led everyone for a dinner party. But Joe Clark couldn't be happy no matter what. He takes out his phone from time to time to look at the photo of himself and Tina. Between toasts and exchanges, Joe Clark quickly became unable to hold his liquor. He even ended up offending the boss by barging into the women's restroom at the hotel. Fortunately, the boss realized he was troubled and didn't make a big deal out of it. Even after the banquet ended, the boss took the initiative to send him home. In the car, Joe Clark mistook the boss for Tina, continuously talking about his feelings for his girlfriend. Tina's success in her career and her gentleness in life make him feel ashamed. Sometimes, he even deliberately farts in the living room. He pees on the toilet seat on purpose. Even so, Tina has never faulted him. Finally, after vomiting, Joe Clark slowly regained consciousness. You quickly go upstairs and go home. Have a good talk with Tina. I will drive the car away first. You can go to the company by yourself tomorrow. Tina still had a gentle smile on her face. It seems like she didn't take the breakup talk seriously this morning. The water has been heated. Do you want to shower first? Joe Clark is feeling Tina's gentleness and can no longer control his emotions. It's really foolish to say breakup words. Thinking back on my relationship with Tina, she was as caring as a close family member, attentive to every detail. Remember when they first moved here, Tina insisted on having her own completely independent room. That was her only request after all these years, and Joe Clark never set foot in it. Reflecting on all this, he soon drifted off to sleep right in the bathtub. Tina, being a girl, couldn't possibly move Joe Clark. The next second, a little head peeked in from outside the door. Is he already asleep? Upon closer inspection, the two girls turned out to look exactly the same. His sleeping appearance is quite amusing. Come over and have some fun too. What is it like to have a pair of twin girlfriends? Tina and her twin sister sat beside Joe Clark, both breathing heavily. Suddenly, Joe Clark stood up and hugged Tina tightly, mumbling his heartfelt words. The girl slowly removed her hand while he was still not fully awake. She left the other girl on the bed and quietly ran away. Joe Clark slowly woke up from his sleep in the early morning. He was completely hungover and couldn't remember what happened last night. He needs to get up quickly. Being late right after a promotion is not appropriate. Joe Clark suddenly realized and pounced towards Tina. I'm sorry about what happened yesterday. If you ever feel like I'm a burden someday, please make sure to tell me. Upon hearing this, Tina turned around and smiled. Didn't you say last night that you wanted to make me happy? Your car was taken by the boss to the office. So Joe Clark could only take Tina's car to work today. On the way, Tina casually asked Joe Clark some questions. There is a person in our hometown. He suddenly realized he had 2 wives after living with his wife for many years. Before she could finish her sentence, Joe Clark couldn't help but burst into laughter. After living together for so many years, they still haven't discovered it. This is simply a pure fool and idiot. Suddenly, Joe Clark received a phone call from his colleague. All the backup scripts in the company have been used up. The video that needs to be filmed today cannot proceed at all. Luckily, Joe Clark has his computer at home. There are still many backup scripts saved on it. Tina turned around, and we went back home. Tina fully supports Joe Clark's work. But then she realized something terrible. She suddenly slammed on the brake with her foot. The two of them were caught off guard, and almost got thrown off by this sudden heavy brake. Now it's time for the younger sister's activities. Why don't you go to the company first? I will send you the data when I get home. Joe Clark was a bit confused by what was said. Forget it, you go to work. I will take a taxi back by myself. Tina instantly grabbed his arm to stop him. It's better for me to take you there. On the way, Tina appeared restless. She even took out her phone while driving. She wanted to send a message to her younger sister. She didn't notice the large truck in front of her at all. It was quickly approaching her. In a moment of urgency, Joe Clark turned sideways. Suddenly turned the steering wheel to one side. This narrowly saved his life in a miraculous way. Tina's appearance today made him feel somewhat strange. His girlfriend is usually a very meticulous person. As soon as the car stopped at the neighborhood, Tina immediately flew out of the car like a bird. The speed of sprinting 100 meters is comparable to Usain Bolt. Joe Clark was confused at the time. I went back to get something. Why did you run? I was afraid you would be delayed, so I wanted to go ahead and open the door for you. However, men's physical strength is incomparable to women's. Just as Joe Clark was about to open the door, a delivery guy ran up. The delivery guy looked at the door number and said, "Hello, this is the food you ordered." Joe Clark was confused at the time. Could it be haunted? However, at that moment, the door suddenly opened. "Thank you, you've worked hard. The delivery is mine." The four of them immediately stood still, looking at each other in confusion. What on earth is going on? This world is too crazy. Even twins can take turns to work and date. Joe Clark looked ahead. The two identical sisters were completely stunned. Tina inside the door had just woken up. She seemed to realize that something had happened. She slowly entered the room and closed the door, attempting to cover up. Only then did Joe Clark react. He pushed the door open and rushed into the room. Who can tell me what's going on here? Running away is the best strategy when faced with danger. Tina behind him saw the situation was bad and was about to run away. Unexpectedly, the next second, she was grabbed back by Joe Clark. Close the door and don't run. You must give me an explanation today. Tina saw the situation and thought she must not be able to get away with it. She could only sit aside and let Joe Clark knock on the door. Tina in the room is still making a final struggle. There is no one in this room. You just had an illusion. Although Joe Clark is not very smart, he is not stupid either. After a while, it seemed that the girl made an important decision. She went forward and opened the locked door. Joe Clark heard the sound from outside and immediately pushed open the door and walked in. The dim room had no light. The floor was piled with trash and girls' clothes. There was a photo of Joe Clark himself on the blackboard. It seemed to be a record the sisters used to exchange shifts. On the table, there were unfinished snacks and a group photo of Joe Clark. Joe Clark wandered around the room for a long time, but didn't see a single soul. Suddenly, a white leg in the quilt caught his attention. Without saying a word, he grabbed the exposed leg. Tina felt a blank on her face. Then her whole body quickly retreated. Seeing that the truth was revealed and there was no escape, the two sisters had to accept their fate and face judgment. Joe Clark tried to put on a very angry expression. But looking at the aggrieved appearance of his lover, he couldn't get angry no matter what. He said, "You both should explain a little bit." The two girls stood still, stuttering and unable to speak for a while. Joe Clark feels like he's not doing well at all. I'm calling Tina. You don't need to answer together. One of them heard this and couldn't help but burst into tears, feeling wronged. The other one gently patted her shoulder, signaling the girl not to worry. In fact, we are all your Tina, Joe Clark. And then he was dumbfounded. Such an off-the-wall plot. Even a novel wouldn't dare to write. What a coincidence. His phone rang at this moment. The two girls subconsciously echoed each other. Answer the phone first. Joe Clark is completely dumbfounded now. Say what you have to say. However, this series of events actually made him forget the true purpose of coming back. Tina, where did I put my external hard drive? The two girls still spoke at the same time. It's next to the computer in the study. They hid in a corner, watching the angry Joe Clark, not even daring to breathe heavily. I'm going to work first. Remember to give me a reasonable explanation when I come back home at night. Tell the truth and don't try to deceive, you know? The two sisters were taken aback. They could only nod repeatedly like little chickens pecking at rice. As he spoke, he casually grabbed one and said, "If you don't go to work now, you'll be late." Only to see the girl looking timid. "Today is not my turn to work," she said. The other person looked at me angrily. "Who drove you here this morning that you could forget so quickly?" He warned me before leaving. "Don't try to sneak away, do you understand? Also, make sure you come home on time at night. How does your girlfriend appease you when you're angry? Will she also send you a cute selfie like this to make it impossible for you to stay angry?" Suddenly experiencing a big change, Joe Clark finally arrived at the company after some twists and turns. Although his girlfriend's change made him a little skeptical about life, fortunately, it did not affect his work. Joe Clark returned to the office and slowly lit a cigarette. Life is truly unpredictable. Things are hard to predict. It turns out that the relatives from Tina's hometown that she mentioned are actually herself. The idiot and the fool she was talking about are also herself. At this moment, a series of footsteps could be heard in the corridor. It looks like a lost and dejected face. The boss handed him his car keys. "Don't drink so much in the future. How was your conversation with Tina last night?" When Tina was mentioned, Joe Clark fell silent again. "Boss, do you know Tina?" Upon hearing this question, the boss seemed to be on guard as if facing a major enemy. He immediately turned his head to change the subject. "The chairman wants to talk to you. You should hurry and go now. Remember, don't let me down later, okay? I only saw the kind old man in front of me. He is the chairman of the group. He is also the father of Joe Clark, that beautiful female boss. The old man is not as imposing as imagined. Instead, he kindly invited the two to take a seat." The old man did not speak. He simply opened the incense burner slowly. He lit the high-quality sandalwood that he had cherished for years. Joe Clark, who smelled the fragrance, instantly felt refreshed. "This is the sandalwood that my father has treasured for many years. He would not show it to just anyone." The old man did not respond. Instead, he silently poured hot water into the teapot. "I often hear Mary mention you. You are a rare young person who is intelligent, clever, and capable." After speaking, he then handed over the teacup in his hand. Joe Clark suddenly felt a bit flattered when he saw this scene. "By the way, little Clark, do you have a girlfriend now?" Before Joe Clark could answer, the boss immediately became nervous. "What are you talking about?" Seeing the old man like this, it seems he is planning to betroth his daughter to him. But little does he know that Tina, who Joe Clark was introduced to by the boss during university, was actually the president of the student union at the time. Joe Clark was a subordinate of the boss at the university, and he had always been her right-hand man. Back at the office, Joe Clark sat in his original spot, lost in thought. All he can think about now is the two Tinas in his family. He looks at his girlfriend's social media account on his phone, wanting to send a message but unsure of what to say. When they were in university, their relationship was very good. At the time, besides thinking that Tina was cheerful and sunny, there was nothing unusual. Suddenly, Joe Clark gathered his courage and slowly typed out 3 words on his phone. But immediately after sending it, he chose to retract the message. Then he thought about sending a voice message to his girlfriend. But the words almost reached his lips, but he held back. In the end, Joe Clark hesitated for a long time and only sent 2 emojis. 3 seconds later, the phone immediately showed that the other party was typing. It seems that Tina was in the same state as him, wanting to reply but not knowing what to say. After waiting for a long time, Joe Clark's phone finally rang with a notification sound. When he opened his phone and looked, the water he had just sipped sprayed out instantly. There was a selfie of Tina in professional attire. Upon seeing this, the originally angry Joe Clark couldn't help but laugh. Indeed, Tina was still the same. Just as he was about to get up, the QQ on his computer also rang. The sender of the message was Tina. Joe Clark instantly felt a bit confused. "Are you the one at home?" she asked. The girl's reply was a cute selfie. No wonder they are called sisters. Now Joe Clark is completely unable to get angry. "I'm going to have dinner first. I will review you guys slowly when I get home." A $1 million businesswoman, holding on to a half-empty bottle of mineral water left by her subordinate, unwilling to let go. After some contemplation, she unexpectedly opened the cap and took a sip. It is well known that she often dines with her colleagues in the company. If you are slow to act, you basically won't even get a strand of hair. The boss heard the noisy sounds from the office and walked out. "It looks like you haven't eaten again, huh?" Joe Clark was about to explain at the mention of this, but his stomach betrayed him by growling. The boss burst out laughing the moment he heard it. She slowly got up. "Follow me. I ordered takeout for lunch and can't finish it alone. Come and eat with me." Joe Clark also wants to show his masculinity. It's okay for a big man to skip a meal, but your stomach can't lie. Stop pretending. If hunger affects your work, I will make you regret it. Joe Clark cannot refuse. The boss took him directly back to his own office. A delicate lunchbox quickly appeared in front of him. Joe Clark, the straightforward man, would never understand. Whose takeout could be so delicate? It was clearly made by the boss himself at home. As he ate, he couldn't help but comment on the taste of the dishes. The taste is indeed very average. Let's not come to this place next time. I'll tell you about a place that is really delicious. When the boss heard this, he felt like killing someone. Speaking of which, I finished eating. What are you going to eat? The girl quickly turned her head at the words. I'll just eat what you left behind. Joe Clark was confused at that time. Then you can eat first. I'll eat the leftovers later. The two went through a round of mutual politeness. Afterwards, feeling embarrassed, Joe Clark said, I'll eat this much, and the rest can be yours. After all, girls have small appetites. I only need to eat a little bit. Joe Clark was quite straightforward. Why did he start managing his figure recently? Is it because he's interested in a wealthy gentleman from a certain family? The boss didn't respond. He just slowly got up after finishing his mouthful of rice. Fuck, if you're done eating, then get out and make money for me in a rush. Letting out a roar, and not daring to let out a fart for Joe Clark. You, this woman, have been squeezing me since college. You have exploited all my labor. Damn capitalist. I will bankrupt you sooner or later. But what the former chairman said is not wrong. You are not young anymore, and should find a boyfriend. This time, the boss did not get angry like before. He just sat there in silence for a long time. Fearless Joe Clark spoke again. He said, What type do you like? I will ask Tina to keep an eye out for you. The girl couldn't take it anymore and stood up, threateningly. The line of people pursuing me goes all the way from here to France. I brought out several billion. I offered to start a company with you, but you treat me like air. Say more nonsense. Be careful, I will go to Tina's place and badmouth you. The boss might sound angry, but his actions are sincere. Slowly took out a bottle of water from the refrigerator and handed it over. Joe Clark took the water without hesitation, opened it, and drank half of it. After putting the remaining half bottle back on the table, Joe Clark left the office. The boss, who was cleaning up the lunch boxes on the table, suddenly noticed the half bottle of water. There was still so much left. It would be a shame to pour it out. Then she blushed and looked around shyly. After making sure that no one was around, the girl opened the bottle cap and drank it down in one gulp. Afterwards she blushed. She couldn't believe she had done such a thing. It was so embarrassing. Having twin sisters like this. What is it like waiting for you to come home every day? Joe Clark was driving alone at night on his way back home. At this moment, he was already eager to return home. His mind is full of shadows of two Tinas. He can't wait to know the truth. In his thoughts, Joe Clark found himself standing still. He didn't move an inch even after 2 green lights in a row. Looking at the familiar front door, Joe Clark inexplicably became nervous. His right hand, reaching for the door handle, also couldn't help but start trembling. The Tinas inside the room heard the sound of the door opening. They immediately turned off the TV and straightened up. Only 2 girls could be seen quickly transforming into a look of waiting for questioning. Joe Clark had seen through everything a long time ago. Stop pretending. I still have the mood to eat potato chips and watch a melodramatic TV series here. I've been conflicted all day. One of them is selectively deaf, still holding on to the potato chips and continuing to act pitifully. The other one is clutching a pillow in hand, with a look of guilt on their face. But before he could erupt again, one of them quickly stepped forward and hugged Joe Clark. Seeing this, another person hurriedly rushed over as well. Don't be angry. Let's just explain things calmly. Looking at the 2 mischievous girls, the anger in Joe Clark's heart dissipated instantly. You guys explain the ins and outs yourselves. Why did one person suddenly become 2 Tinas? The 2 girls swept away the previous atmosphere. Their mischievous expressions quickly turned serious. Feel free to ask whatever you want. We are very serious. At this point, Joe Clark was dumbfounded. He didn't know what he wanted to ask. For a moment, the atmosphere became somewhat awkward, most afraid of the sudden silence in the air. Seeing the situation, the elder sister took the initiative to break the silence by slowly handing over a cup of hot water. Unexpectedly, Joe Clark took the cup from the bottom with his hand. In pain, Joe Clark instinctively let go of the cup in his hand. The scalding water instantly reminded him to be careful. Soon, Joe Clark had a look of unbearable pain on his face, as if he had lost something important. The 2 sisters almost simultaneously took out a tissue. Are you okay? Did you get burned anywhere? My younger sister's face is full of disapproval. What are you up to? Can the water that hot be drunk? Speaking of that, won't it scald? If so, things will be serious. Joe Clark couldn't take it anymore. He broke free, got up, and ran to the bathroom. After a while of rinsing with cold water, the pain finally eased a bit. However, just as he took off his pants and was about to change clothes, the door burst open, and 2 pairs of underwear were almost simultaneously thrown in. The comical appearance made the 2 sisters couldn't help but burst into laughter. Joe Clark, who originally intended to investigate sternly, had completely lost his temper at the moment. So you're saying that the foolish relative I mentioned is actually referring to myself, right? The next second, Joe Clark couldn't help but burst into laughter. The pillow in the hands of the younger sister was thrown straight up. After so many years, if you still haven't figured it out, who else can you blame? This stinky man actually dares to scold us. Aren't you going to say anything? The older sister didn't say anything. She just laughed uncontrollably on the side. So last night after I got drunk? It was you guys who escorted me back to the bedroom together, right? 2 girls smiled, and we also helped you wash your face a bit. Reeking of alcohol from head to toe, you smell like death. With your capacity for alcohol, you're not worthy of going out to drink. Moreover, to leave evidence, my younger sister even took a photo on purpose. Joe Clark was dumbfounded at the time. You actually took advantage of me while I was drunk and ruined my body. Sensing the situation was not good, the older sister immediately pushed the blame onto the younger sister. You are so irresponsible. Clearly, you are also having a good time yourself." After saying that, the two sisters simultaneously turned their heads away. Neither of them wanted to talk to each other anymore. Joe Clark was completely stunned. He felt that things had gone beyond his control. These twin sisters have actually grown to become one person. They share the same homework and the same job. They even date the same person. Joe Clark saw that things were about to get out of control. Then he stood up and grabbed the chins of the two sisters. He first examined their teeth. Then he carefully examined their facial features. He didn't even overlook the feet, and after a thorough observation, he indeed did not find anything different. Could it be that his girlfriend, just like in the movies, has split? The two girls couldn't help but look puzzled when they heard this. What does this have to do with anything? Suddenly, Joe Clark's head exploded. Could it be that Tina has gone to make a clone? The thought of this made Joe Clark feel sad. Why did you have to do this? The two girls sitting by the side were completely speechless. Indeed, strong stimulation can affect one's intelligence. It's actually not that science fiction. Plus, the matter is very simple. The two sisters have been twins since they were young. Same hairstyle, same clothes, same toys. Joe Clark was shocked to hear this. So you are twins. In other words, two completely independent individuals. Big sister feels like her whole person is falling apart. This guy is just too dull. Because of the heavy workload during their student years, both of them are very distressed. So they decided to live as one person, completing their studies together. However, they didn't expect that things would get out of hand afterwards. More accurately, they were actually pretending to be one person. When Joe Clark heard this, he was stunned. Even in a novel's plotline, things wouldn't be written like this, right? Because of this, their parents took them to a mental hospital for evaluation. However, everything turned out to be normal in the end, and they couldn't resist their daughter's persuasion. Eventually, their parents reluctantly accepted the situation. It's because of outdated thinking like yours that makes children exhausted. After all, in this world, there's nothing that cannot be done if one can imagine it. As the younger sister spoke, she stretched her foot in front of Joe Clark, asking for a tickle. Not wanting to be outdone, the older sister also demanded a tickle. In that moment, Joe Clark realized something alarming. He had been unknowingly in a relationship with the two of them all along. The two sisters didn't deny it, but showed a rebellious attitude. "Who would envy your treatment if they knew about it?" Joe Clark asked. "Then, who did I share my first kiss with?" The two sisters fell silent and didn't respond. After a while, the younger sister hesitantly scratched her head, while the older sister slowly raised her hand, admitting, "It was during the overnight outing that summer." The two sisters looked confused upon hearing this revelation. Eventually, the younger sister raised her hand and, looking at her two sisters with bowed heads, confirmed the truth. "Blame it on the older sister for falling for you first. In the end, she dragged me into it as well. I'm the one who suffered a big loss." Judging from her appearance, she seems quite dissatisfied. The older sister immediately retorted, "Didn't you also quickly fall for it as well?" Even though neither of them admitted it. But it's obvious that both of them have developed a liking for Joe Clark. While Joe Clark is standing by, he seems to have something to say but hesitates. Just say what you have to say. Stop beating around the bush. The two girls are sitting nervously, as if they are waiting for some kind of judgment. After a long while, Joe Clark slowly stood up. "I'm sorry for talking about breaking up yesterday. I'm also sorry for the argument we just had." Joe Clark stood still, seemingly making an important decision. "Can I live with you guys like this in the future?" Two girls were almost stunned. "You fool, you only realized our intentions today, causing us to be anxious and scared all day." These twin sisters. Each has their own favorite food they want to eat. This is really hard for the boyfriend who is cooking on the side. Only children get to choose. We both want it. After 3.5 days of pulling and tugging between the three people, the two Tina's matter is finally resolved smoothly. Soon their stomachs coincidentally started growling. The two sisters immediately went to prepare dinner when they saw this. Although he also wanted to experience the feeling of being fed by the two sisters, after this series of events, he felt a bit sorry for Tina. "Tonight, let me cook. Let you all taste my cooking skills." The two sisters immediately felt overjoyed upon hearing this. One wanted to eat tofu soup, while the other said she wanted braised tofu. It is said that these two people are completely the same in all other aspects, except for their different tastes in food. They argued for half a day with no result. Unexpectedly, they ended up getting physical and started tearing at each other directly. Joe Clark was dumbfounded at that moment. Is it still not enough even if I do it? This is too difficult. It seems that it will be up to me to maintain world peace in the future. However, this also dispelled the doubts in Joe Clark's heart. No wonder during the previous date. One day he loves seafood, and the next day he doesn't. Saying this, Joe Clark turned on the TV. "You guys behave, and wait here for dinner." Busy Joe Clark asked them to peel garlic. The two girls competed eagerly, afraid of losing the credit. The private world of two suddenly became a family of three. Although Joe Clark is still slightly unaccustomed to it, the lively and joyful atmosphere in the house makes him feel very comfortable. The tension of the day weighed heavily on Joe Clark, leaving him feeling exhausted. As he sat on the bed lost in thought, two figures peeked in from behind and entered cautiously. Two girls in pajamas were seen, standing timidly at the door. Joe Clark looked at them blankly. This day had finally come. Vegetables can all be eaten. But who do you choose to sleep with at night? Three people sat at the edge of the bed with their heads down for a long time without speaking, most afraid of the sudden quiet in the air. Suddenly, the older sister reached out and grabbed Joe Clark's arm. The younger sister also didn't hesitate. She almost instantly reached out and grabbed Joe Clark's other arm. The next second, she directly hugged Joe Clark, saying, "We actually wanted to try sleeping together a long time ago." The older sister held Joe Clark with seeming reluctance, appearing to be in a dilemma. Why act as if you're so unwilling? The younger sister tries her best to be hands-on and minimize the noise. Sly man. Taking advantage and still pretending to be innocent. At a critical moment, it's still essential for sisters to work together and share benefits. Go to sleep early. It's your turn to work tomorrow. Late at night, Joe Clark suddenly woke up from his dream. To his surprise, both sides of him were empty. Two girls were standing at the window against the night sky. Both of them had cold expressions and remained silent. The only sound was the sobbing, which sounded particularly harsh. Shocked, Joe Clark sat up suddenly from the bed. Looking beside him, the two girls were obediently lying there without any difference. Joe Clark, feeling helpless, lay back down and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It turned out it was just a dream. However, Joe Clark no longer felt sleepy and went to the balcony alone to slowly light a cigarette. The next morning, the alarm clock rang as scheduled. As usual, Tina had already begun preparing breakfast in the kitchen. Sleepy Joe Clark went to the bathroom to get ready. But he had clearly forgotten that there was another person in the house. His little sister seemed unfazed by the oversight. "Not ready yet. Wait a moment," she said calmly. Suddenly, another person appeared in the house. It will take some time to get used to having one more person around. However, at the moment, he was more curious about another matter. "So Tina is whose name? What is the other person's name?" Unexpectedly, the older sister immediately stepped forward, covering the younger sister, who was about to speak. "Don't tell him. Let this fool guess for himself." Upon hearing this, Joe Clark surprisingly did not get angry at all. Anyway, no matter what the name is, she is his beloved Tina. The man actually did that in front of a girl. Copy and paste the message to a girl. Sent it to another girl on QQ. I have to say, this is truly the Ocean King. In the early morning, Joe Clark arrived at the company with a smug look on his face. His colleagues thought that it was as if the iron tree that had been silent for 1,000 years had blossomed. By the way, there is something unusual happening today. Endorsement and promotion plan for a female celebrity. So Joe Clark's recent work pressure is still quite high. However, the subordinates are supposed to tell him the company is going to postpone this plan. Joe Clark was confused at that time. He put in a lot of effort, but the female celebrity he had just managed to sign ended up leaving just like that. Angry Joe Clark didn't say a word, and he directly pushed the door and entered Mary's office. And the boss's mood clearly wasn't good either. At this moment, she was swearing at someone on the phone. "Don't tell me it's useless. You set a time for me. I will call immediately." After hanging up the phone, Mary fell silent for a moment. "Hurry up and tidy up. Accompany me on a business trip later." Joe Clark was stunned in place at that time. He originally came to be angry. As a result, he ended up implicating himself instead. In the midst of his thoughts, Joe Clark hurriedly got up and rushed outside. Regardless, work comes first. However, the next second after opening the door, he unexpectedly ran into Mary outside. The powerful impact even knocked the girl down directly to the ground. Joe Clark knew that his life was coming to an end. He quickly apologized in an attempt to escape punishment. Unexpectedly, Mary, who was sitting on the ground, did not seem angry at all. "Please help me up quickly. There are very important things to attend to. Here, take the car keys and drive. We need to go to the airport right now." The purpose of their trip this time is to prevent that female celebrity from breaking her contract. Losing this endorsement deal would make the next round of financing for their company quite difficult. However, isn't business negotiations supposed to be accompanied by business personnel? Why are they bringing me along? Mary fell silent the moment she heard this. "Because you have always been my lucky charm. I don't know since when. Whenever you are around, my luck is always particularly good." These words reminded Joe Clark of their time in college. Back then, Mary was the school's campus goddess. She was the object of countless boys' dreams. If someone managed to court her, that achievement would be enough for him to boast about throughout his university years. But you have to be careful. Tina is my best sister. If you dare to hurt her, I will fire you directly. Joe Clark is in the airport waiting lounge holding his phone. He is sending a message to Tina to update her on the situation. One thing that is currently bothering him is the arrangement of his parents meeting Tina's parents to visit them together. After sending the message to his sister, Joe Clark copies and pastes it. Then he sent it again to his younger sister on QQ. This confusing operation left Mary completely bewildered. What important information! It needs to be sent twice using different software. Joe Clark quickly realized that it was impolite to spy in this manner. However, his series of actions were discovered by Tina on the other end of the phone. Typically, the Earth number is used by the older sister, while the younger sister uses QQ. But a selfie that followed made Joe Clark doubt his life choices. He saw on the younger sister's computer screen that at the moment, 2 messaging apps were open. "You old pervert. I didn't expect you to be such a player usually." The selfie just now is striking. It was clearly seen by Mary behind me. Joe Clark can't clear his name no matter what he does this time. Joe Clark arrived early at the agreed coffee shop with Hui Min. Suddenly, he laughed a few times and randomly said, "Thank you." Hui Min suddenly felt a little confused when she heard the words. The serious look on this guy really made her feel uncomfortable. Back when I had just graduated, Joe Clark was just a despised intern. Due to not knowing how to flatter others, he changed several companies in a row. So even when being exploited by the shrewd, he is willing to do so. For the company, for the boss. I will definitely not hesitate to jump into the fire and wade through water. Suddenly, a silvery bell-like sound interrupted them from behind. "I didn't expect, President Joe, that you still have the mood to talk about love and romance here." The person who came was none other than Angel, their target for this trip. I saw the girl walking towards Joe Clark and reaching out her hand slowly. "Hello, handsome. I really like your looks." Before Joe Clark could react, Angel directly grabbed his hand. You are so straightforward, but can't handle General Zhou. Why don't you try to handle me instead? Or you can say I can be your mistress. By then, with your looks and my fame, we can easily go viral across the entire internet. Joe Clark didn't agree, but surprisingly he didn't refuse either. Wayman finally couldn't bear it anymore and exploded. Breaking the agreement is one thing, but daring to flirt with me is another. Joe Clark was also startled by her reaction. Angel also stopped playing around and sat down slowly. Then let's talk about some serious business. I still have an outdoor scene to shoot later. As the saying goes, a strong company produces popular internet celebrities. The period during which an internet celebrity can be profitable is only a few years. So of course, I want to maximize my own profits. And most importantly, someone has offered Angel a better price. Finally hearing the truth, Joe Clark and the other person clearly hesitated, although they were mentally prepared before they came. Seeing Hui Min on the verge of losing control and about to explode completely, Joe Clark immediately handed the tea on the table over. Don't get angry first. Solving the problem is the priority. You also know someone who offers high prices to me. Why don't you talk to them face to face? I will sign a contract with whoever offers a price that satisfies me. Wayman can't hold on any longer this time. But at present, this is the only way to solve the problem. Hui Min grabbed it decisively at the agreed time. Confused, Joe Clark walked out. The girl, with an angry huff, took the lead and walked ahead. She thought to herself, when have I ever been treated like this? The next second, Wayman followed suit and ran. She quickly lost balance and fell backward. Luckily, Joe Clark reacted quickly and reached out to catch her. It turns out that the girl's high heels got stuck in the sewer grate. The unlucky incident that happened that day. It's almost as bad as what happened 20 years ago. I saw the girl reaching out to take off the other high heel shoe and throwing it aside. Using the momentum of flipping the high heel shoes, a stream of profanity also burst out of her mouth. Joe Clark beside didn't speak. He just slowly took out his phone and turned on the navigation. So you're planning to go to the internet cafe next, right? The girl turned her head and smiled knowingly, as if saying, you understand me, with her expression. It turns out that since college, whenever Huimin encounters something unpleasant, she will invite Joe Clark and Tina to accompany her to hang out at an internet cafe. The fierce battles and chaos in the game have also become her only way to vent her emotions. Over the years, only Joe Clark still remembers her little habits. So what are we waiting for? Let's hurry to the Valley of Kings and start the journey of chaos and battles. What are the essential skills for keeping a girlfriend? That would be sweet talk, naturally. For example, every time you kiss me, it feels like the first kiss to me. In the internet cafe, fighting back and forth exhilaratingly, Hui Min's mood has clearly improved a lot. Suddenly, the girl's mouth corners lifted and she asked about Joe Clark. Do you remember the year of our junior year? Did we travel to Xiamen together? Joe Clark could never forget. That was the place where he kissed Tina for the first time. Just then, Joe Clark's phone suddenly rang. Joe Clark took a look at his phone, and his body clearly stiffened. Boss, why don't you go back to the hotel first? I have some personal matters to attend to here. Wayman is a bit strange, but I don't take it too seriously. But if you dare mess around, I will make you regret it. After being instructed by Wayman, Joe Clark left alone by taxi. He soon stood at the airport exit, constantly fiddling with his phone. He looked anxious, looking around in all directions, as if searching for something. Suddenly, a voice called out to him. The person who approached him turned out to be Tina, the one he had been thinking about incessantly. However, this person is Tina's younger sister. Tina, the older sister, is still at work in the company at this time. It turns out it is their company. They also need to arrange a business trip to Xiamen. And this time, it's the older sister's turn to go on a business trip. So the younger sister came to find Joe Clark a day early. But why did you come early? Isn't it the same if you all come together tomorrow? The younger sister was feeling really bad at that time. You don't seem to have a clue about what you want. We're talking about these straight guys who can find twin girlfriends. What qualifications do you have to not work hard in front of the screen? Let's go back to the hotel for now. We need to discuss work matters with Huimin tonight. Tina has no other requirements. As long as she is with Joe Clark, it's fine. Joe Clark suddenly stopped walking. What should we do if Huimin finds out about the twins? The girl burst into laughter at the words. Do you think we've made it through all these years easily? Joe Clark thought so too. It took 4 years to notice that they shared the same bed. In the taxi, Tina was attracted by the scenery outside. From here, you can see Kalangsu. Joe Clark, looking into the distance, also fell into memories of the past. That summer of his junior year is unforgettable to him. He spent over a month in Xiamen with Tina and Huimin. Time flies, and it has passed for so long. Joe Clark slowly reached out and held Tina's hand. Luckily, I have you all by my side all these years, he said. It seemed like the girl was also moved by him. She went straight to Joe Clark's face and kissed him on the cheek. Don't worry. We will always be by your side in the future. Suddenly, the scenery in the distance caught Tina's attention again. That's the place where you took my first kiss back then. Joe Clark looked embarrassed at the words. I will pay attention next time. Following this, he took the opportunity to grab the girl's face. Every kiss with you is like a first kiss to me. Just as the two were playing around, Joe Clark's phone rang. Interestingly, it was a message sent by my older sister at home. The girl grabbed the phone without saying a word. Then it was a video call. We are on our way to the hotel now. When are you coming over? Remember to bring me a new swimsuit when you come. It's been 2 years since we graduated, and we haven't traveled together. This will be the first time for the 3 of us. Let's wear that outfit when we stay in the hotel. This statement completely made the driver doubt the meaning of life. Young people nowadays are really something. Joe Clark, who hung up the phone, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Tina, on the other hand, slowly reached out her hand. How about it? Are you looking forward to it? This is a pair of long-lost lovers who are just preparing to catch up. The next second, the boss's head poked in through the crack in the door. They were both stunned at that moment. The atmosphere in the room was incredibly awkward. Joe Clark took Tina back to the hotel at night. In order not to let Huimin find out, the two of them acted very mysteriously. Those who don't know might think that there are thieves. Huimin lives next door. Keep your voice down so she doesn't find out. The girl is very unhappy. Clearly she is the official girlfriend. Why is it made to seem like she's the third party? However, before the words fell, Huimin appeared. She pushed open the door and walked out. Tina was quick-witted and acted promptly. She quickly opened the door and ran inside. Joe Clark stood there in a daze. His guilt and embarrassment were almost written all over his face. You look suspicious, Huimin said straightforwardly as she stepped forward. She was ready to enter the room to investigate. What hidden secrets are you keeping in the room? You didn't bring back any indescribable women to the hotel, did you? At the thought of this, Huimin couldn't contain her anger. The high heels under her feet gave Joe Clark a good lesson. Who is inside? Get out quickly for me. The fierce momentum frightened Tina. She didn't dare to take a breath. 3 people are separated by only one door, but clearly each harbors a different emotion. Suddenly, a small card on the ground caught her attention. When you're out, I have to keep an eye on you, Tina. I confiscated the small card. Don't even think about doing such unspeakable things under my nose. After speaking, Huimin walked out alone. Tina, who was hiding behind the door, silently breathed a sigh of relief. Joe Clark quickly turned around and locked the door. They had finally managed to sneak past successfully. The two looked at each other and burst into laughter the next second. Tina threw herself at Joe Clark. It was really too risky just now. But this feeling is quite interesting. This is a secret belonging to the three of us. No one is allowed to tell others, okay? With that, Tina wrapped her arms around Joe Clark's neck. Standing on tiptoe in leather shoes, she didn't say a word and kissed directly. Joe Clark, with a smile on his face, lifted Tina. It's getting late. You should go take a shower first. At the same time, a series of urgent knocks came from outside the door. Joe Clark is inside your room. Why is there a woman's voice? The two people inside the room were stunned at that moment. They thought, Hui Min, your ears are really too sharp. Tina quickly got up and ran into the bathroom to hide. Joe Clark then opened the door. He did not even notice that he was shirtless at the moment. Hui Min blushed when she saw the situation, and it took her a while to regain her composure. Finally, she realized her loss of control. Why did you come out like this? The clothes you changed in the morning have been washed. I'll bring them to you. Suddenly, Hui Min's head exploded with a bang. I clearly heard just now. There was a woman's voice in your room. There is no need for Joe Clark to explain it all. Hui Min went straight into the room to prepare for a second inspection. However, a movie is playing on the living room TV. It made her feel really bad. You actually watch this kind of stuff normally. I would never have let Tina be with you if I had known you were such a pervert. Joe Clark looks helpless. You really understand nothing. You'll understand when you have a partner. The girl was stunned at the moment. I wasn't even talking about you. How dare you show off your love in front of me? With that, she dropped what she was holding and left the room straight away. The crisis was relieved once again, and Tina also walked out slowly. You idiot. What are we going to do now that Hui Min knows about our movie date? However, at this moment, Hui Min's little head poked in again. I took the wrong bag just now. Before the words had even finished, the three of them stood still on the spot in the next second. Sure enough, my hearing is fine. She just didn't expect it to be Tina. The nights by the seaside are always bustling and extraordinary. Nature also includes indulging in crayfish and barbecue by the seaside. Caught red-handed, Tina decided to come clean and stop pretending. Our company has a new project here, so they are sending me on a business trip. But that's just a side benefit. The main reason is that I haven't hung out with Hui Min for a long time. I praised Hui Min so much that I got a bit disoriented. You're always switching between being quiet and mischievous. People who don't know might think you're two different people. This is quite unexpected. Professional barbecuer Joe Clark was startled. Is this the legendary sixth sense of women? It's also a little too accurate. Fortunately, Tina broke the awkward silence in time. I want to eat shrimp. I saw the girl opening her mouth, but there was no movement in her hands. The look of waiting to be fed. Does it remind you of your girlfriend in front of the screen? Of course, this scene. It's extremely unfriendly to single individuals. Suddenly, a crisp female voice interrupted them from behind. What a coincidence. How come you are all here? And there's even a beauty added. Is this the girl the handsome manager just hit on? Angel said bluntly. She sat down next to Joe Clark without any reservation. I'm here to help promote this store with a video. Do you mind if I join you for a meal here? Hui Min is indeed generous. She still wore a warm smile on her face. Tina, on the other hand, was not that friendly. If you want to sit, come and sit next to me. The girl clearly hadn't figured out the situation yet. Is it okay if I sit next to you, handsome manager? Tina is Joe Clark's official girlfriend. Angel finally realized the seriousness of the situation. That was really a coincidence. I am used to joking around normally. The girl who knows well about women's jealousy quickly got up and changed her seat. Soon, a few people were full of food and drink. However, the war between the two girls was far from over. On one side is Angel, who enjoys watching the fun without worrying about big matters, and on the other side is Tina, who displays anger on her face. Hui Min, caught in the middle, originally wanted to be a peacemaker. But as the saying goes, when two women fight, there is always one who gets hurt. Suddenly, Angel slammed the table and stood up abruptly. Anyway, it's still early. Why don't we play a game of truth or dare together? Tina naturally didn't want to show weakness. Let's play Who's Afraid of Who? The three of them sat by the sea with their own secrets in mind. They were all thinking about the same thing. I remember the last time we played Truth or Dare was also in Shaman. And it was also here. And that time, with Wayman's divine assistance, Joe Clark successfully pursued Tina. Speaking of this, Wayman quietly lowered her head into deep thought. What would have happened if she hadn't introduced Tina to Joe Clark back then? Soon, Angel walked over with beer. How can you play games without beer and a little barbecue? The girl also ignored her image at all. Open a can of beer and drink it all in one gulp. Let's get started. Now let me explain the rules. The person who draws the longest chopstick gets to ask a question. Seeing several people being indifferent, Angel also felt confused. Since you guys don't want to draw, then let me go first. Saying this, the girl unexpectedly spread out her palm. She directly picked out the shortest one from inside. This left several people looking bewildered. They couldn't figure out what the girl was trying to do. But Tina was not polite either. So let me make a move then. Which company offered you terms to break the contract? If you don't tell, then go kiss that person for 30 seconds. There is a fat, greasy middle-aged uncle sitting not far away. I saw the uncle slowly rubbing out a mud ball on his back. Then he held it up to his nose and smelled it again and again. The lecherous attitude was highlighted to the fullest extent. Who knew Angel let out a loud scream. Pour me a drink. Then she got up and ran quickly to the uncle's side. Without saying much, she directly kissed him. Giving her first kiss to such a middle-aged, greasy uncle was quite an experience. I saw him slowly rub a mud ball behind his back. Then he leaned in and sniffed it for a while in front of his nose. The next second, Angel ran up quickly and greeted the uncle. Then, without mincing words, Angel went straight to the point. Just after sniffing the mud ball, the uncle was a bit stunned by the sudden attack. Onlookers next to him also took out their phones to take pictures. Why doesn't this good opportunity come to me? After completing the mission, Angel quickly shot out about 10 meters. The uncle, on the other hand, was in a good mood. Girl, you really know how to appreciate things. Don't judge me by my appearance. In fact, I own 5 houses in the village. Angel didn't joke around with him either. You better focus on taking care of your houses. After watching the whole process, the three of them were dumbfounded at that time. This girl is really ruthless. Absolutely do not provoke her. Angel let out a sudden exclamation after looking at her phone. It had actually been over 30 seconds. I'm at a loss. This was my first kiss. Now Tina is also not calm. How can you play around with your first kiss like this? Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. If you don't say anything, who else will know? Moreover, he even added my number to the Fat Nerds group. I really made a big profit this time. She herself probably doesn't even believe what she said. How about everyone? Isn't it exciting? Let's continue then. Joe Clark and Tina were completely scared out of their wits. They dared to joke about such things. Wayman just smiled gracefully. You have successfully caught my attention. The three of them mustered up their courage and finally started the official drawing of lots. Angel has a charming face. Unfortunately, it's not me this time. Joe Clark also looks apologetic. But Tina's face froze instantly. In her hand was the shortest one. Fortunately, the longest one was in Wayman's hand. At this moment, Wayman secretly looked at Joe Clark. Lately, you two seem a bit off. It seems like there's something you're hiding from me. Joe Clark and Tina fell silent instantly at the words. The matter of the twins is absolutely not to be spoken about. But if it's not spoken about, one must accept the punishment of taking a huge risk. Suddenly Hui Min seemed to have thought of something. Do you remember that summer vacation? Wasn't there a punishment that Tina didn't finish here? Angel also heard this and looked curious. Tina is feeling unwell. She immediately cast a pleading look at Joe Clark for help. Suddenly Tina sprung up. I choose the great adventure. It's not a big deal. Without saying a word, the girl swiftly ran towards the distant high platform. Angel was a bit confused. What kind of punishment required her to run so far? However, the next second was embarrassing. The act of picking toenails happened. Since you have asked sincerely, we will compassionately tell you. In order to prevent the world from being destroyed. To safeguard world peace. Implement love and truth to conquer evil. Lovely and charming villainous character. We are the rocket team shuttling through the galaxy. A bright tomorrow awaits us from the white hole-colored universe. That's how it is, meow. After a performance, Angel instantly became Tina's big fan. It was so cool. It's a pity your style isn't being an internet celebrity. Tina's embarrassed toes almost dug out a 3-bedroom apartment. However, the following 3 people completely piqued the interest. Finally, Tina also perked up. It seems that she won't let anyone get away. Yuan's entire body went numb as she held the shortest chopsticks at the moment. Actually, I have had a question for you all these years. Finally, there is a chance now. Angel looked excited, not minding the chaos at all. Today, she has learned so much gossip. You have never been in a relationship all these years. So what kind of man do you really like? If you don't say, I'll give it to you. Call the first person in your phone contact list and confess your feelings. Huimin stared at the familiar yet unfamiliar number on her phone. If it's a real confession, the sisterhood might end right here and now. Angel looked at the reactions of the 2 people and guessed the other person's identity. In fact, when I was very young, I was taken care of by the nanny at home. All of my parents' thoughts are focused on work. I work hard to get high scores and achieve good results. Just to receive praise from my parents. Actually, what I want is very simple. Just someone who will eat with me when I'm hungry and talk with me when I'm tired. Can smile at each other face to face without any reservation. Can support each other on the path of life. Just like this, always and forever. The person who accompanies me. Finally, Hui Min's gaze fell on Joe Clark behind her. What seems like a simple request is actually much more difficult than having a house, a car, and a dowry of tens of thousands. Upon hearing this, Tina immediately hugged Hui Min. Even if you are single, I will always be with you. Angel was also touched by Hui Min's words. The 3 girls then raised their glasses frequently. Joe Clark on the side was simply doubting life. The friendship between women really comes so quickly. What should I do if my girlfriend has poor taste in alcohol? Why not try using a sweet kiss to completely conquer her? Joe Clark picked up the heavily drunk Tina and walked straight out. Hui Min also quickly followed suit when she saw this. Angel, left with unfulfilled desires, stood alone in the wind, disheveled. Sitting in the taxi returning to the hotel. Master, do you believe in love? I don't know if I believe in love. Anyway, vomiting in the car will cost you 200 yuan. Tina didn't disappoint everyone in the end. In an instant, she bounced off Joe Clark's thigh. Then a wave of nausea surged in the stomach, leaving Joe Clark looking stunned. Master, please stop the car. I didn't bring enough money today. Tina then crawled to the roadside in a hurry. After the sudden outpouring, she finally became much more awake. Hui Min, you go back first. I'll stay and help her sober up. The girl looked at the loving couple and couldn't help but feel overwhelmed, as if 10,000 alpacas were running through her heart. While Tina held a bottle of mineral water in her hand, looking rather embarrassed. The amount of alcohol consumed during this meal is beyond words, causing oneself to lose face completely. Joe Clark looked helpless. How could you live without me? The girl also heard these words. She laughed out with a chuckle. She kissed the stunned Joe Clark directly. You took advantage of me while I was drunk just now to kiss me forcibly. Now I must repay you. The girl's principle is to never suffer losses. After a long time, she slowly brought her mouth close to Joe Clark's ear. Stinky pig! I will always love you! This sudden confession left Joe Clark stunned in place. After Tina finished speaking, she slumped onto the bench. She immediately put on a sloppy appearance. Joe Clark immediately understood. He was seen bending down with his back towards Tina. Come up here. I will carry you back. The girl's face showed no trace of that kind of strong woman's aura. Kiss Joe Clark's big mouth deeply again. This will be considered as your ticket. Destination hotel. Departure. With the blessing of the ticket, Joe Clark is also at full firepower. He ran straight out for over 200 meters in one breath. Then, he was completely exhausted. Just then, the phone in Tina's pocket rang. On the other side of the camera was unexpectedly Tina's sister at home. She was seen wearing pajamas, drinking red wine, looking somewhat sophisticated. Why didn't you answer the phone when I called just now? I thought you were engaged in something indescribable. My younger sister quickly took the phone away. We are out shopping. The older sister took another sip of red wine. Remember to control yourself tonight. Joe Clark will be coming to discuss matters tomorrow. Upon hearing this, the younger sister even leaned closer to Joe Clark. But you need to come earlier tomorrow. I need to sync information with you before work starts. The two sisters take turns working every day to ensure smooth workflow. They must summarize their work every night. Joe Clark instantly realized something important when he heard the words. Do I need to synchronize my intimate life with yours? Hearing this, the older sister unexpectedly lowered her head in shyness. If we don't share, it's easy to be exposed. Joe Clark is really not doing well. No wonder it's clearly two people, but they don't communicate often. The younger sister quickly changed the topic too. Today, Huimin finally talked about the type of person she likes. Upon hearing this, the older sister hung her head in apology. Who already has a good idea of the type of person Huimin likes. In any case, no matter what, Huimin will always be their best friend. His girlfriend turned out to be the representative of a rival company. How would you choose between career and love? In the early morning, Joe Clark slowly woke up from his sleep. He pushed Tina off his body and got up slowly. Huimin had already started urging him to get out of bed. He quickly changed his clothes. He then gently kissed Tina, who was still asleep. I'm leaving first. You can sleep a little longer. Huimin had long been waiting respectfully outside the door. At this moment, Tina's phone rang at an inappropriate time. The girl, in a daze, slowly reached for the phone beside her. It turned out that the sister wanted to call Joe Clark. However, she found that his phone was switched off, possibly because his phone was out of battery. By the time the younger sister changed into her clothes and chased after her, it was already too late. Last night, due to being too excited, I actually forgot to synchronize information with my sister. Angel, dressed in plain clothes, was already waiting inside the tea house. Joe Clark looked puzzled and asked, Who are you? The girl immediately pinched her ponytail and said, You don't recognize me after just one night? In an instant, they were both dumbfounded. Today there is a handsome guy coming over. So, I dressed up carefully. A man and a woman slowly walked in from outside, and behind the man was Tina, Joe Clark's favorite. Joe Clark slowly walked up and held the girl's hand. What's going on? Why wasn't this told to us in advance? Tina turned around, grabbed Joe Clark's hand, and walked out. Huimin's face showed no expression at all. So it's you, this guy? At this time, Joe Clark outside the private room also found that his phone was out of battery. It's all because last night was too passionate. I actually forgot to charge my phone. Tina looked at Joe Clark Angel apologetically and said it was all the company's decision. Please don't hold a grudge against me with Huimin. Joe Clark didn't respond, just smiled and patted the girl's head. The man in the room also slowly spoke. You don't seem surprised at all. Huimin looked very gloomy. She seemed to have no intention of talking to him at all. But she smiled when she saw Tina walk in. This was their first meeting. It was a serious occasion to meet for the first time. Tina walked up to Angel and extended her hand. Hello. Nice to meet you. Huimin looked confused. Joe Clark immediately realized that something was wrong. Obviously, the two of them forgot to synchronize information last night. Angel also doesn't understand what's going on. Tina saw the expressions of the three people and immediately realized that there was a problem. Joe Clark quickly stood up when he saw the situation. Let's have a cup of tea for our first meeting. Fortunately, I am quite clever. This day is really difficult. The atmosphere has been almost set. Huimin slowly started speaking. Just say it. Angel is very important to our company. If you forcefully snatch it, I will fight you at all costs. The man did not speak immediately. He just slowly poured a cup of tea for everyone. In fact, we have a better option. Do you want to hear it? Before he could finish, Tina slowly stood up holding a stack of documents. The group is preparing to acquire your company. This is the acquisition contract. Huimin's face no longer had the calmness it had before upon hearing this. Looking at the tea in the cup, she fell into silence. Based on the current capabilities of your company alone, there is simply no possibility of a future. Even if your performance can rank fourth in the industry, it will still be eliminated in the future. Huimin stood up angrily upon hearing this. Can it be that my team has worked so hard for so many years, and we will get nothing in the end? You guys go ahead and chat. I need to go to the restroom. Tina saw the situation and greeted before also following to walk out. In the face of high prices temptation, Huimin does not want to give in to others at all. I have a group of willing partners to challenge difficulties with me, so I will absolutely not just sell the company like this. After she finished speaking, she grabbed Tina's hand. The business matters have been discussed. Let's go shopping now. Tina stood with her back to the two people on the edge of the pedestrian bridge, looking thoughtful. I may have said something that might make you feel a bit sorry. But from a business perspective, you made a wrong decision. Joe Clark looked at Tina hesitantly, as if he had already figured out her thoughts. No matter what you say, I don't think Huimin will blame you. Saying this, he hugged the girl and kissed her deeply. Huimin stood still beside them, looking like a 1,000-watt light bulb. I certainly know what the right choice is. But do you guys really think I have no cards at all? Shopping for women is always unfriendly to men. Joe Clark at this moment feels completely exhausted. Huimin also looks a bit puzzled at his appearance. What time did you two go to bed last night? How did he become like that? Joe Clark immediately sprang to his feet upon hearing those words. He cannot tolerate being told by two women that he's not good enough. Let's go to South Putua Temple to have vegetarian food. Then we can take a look around Shaman University nearby. Joe Clark was collapsing inside at the time. But faced with two girls, he had no say at all. Silly girl, are you tired of wearing high heels? Let me carry you. So, in order to prove himself, the fit Joe Clark voluntarily carried over 100 pounds. Tina then unceremoniously rested her head on it. By the way, were you also carrying your younger sister like this yesterday? Before Joe Clark could react, Tina's small mouth pressed against his. Huimin walked ahead without even wanting to turn her head back. Just carrying it for a while, and already can't handle it. Your body seems just about average. Two girls inside the food stall are studying the menu. Joe Clark is not interested in this matter. After all, he'll just eat whatever his girlfriend leaves behind. Suddenly, a dish caught Tina's attention. I want to eat this dish of fried shrimp with scallion and ginger sauce. Joe Clark was surprised. He clearly remembered that one of the two sisters did not like to eat shrimp. Yesterday, the younger sister ate half a kilogram of lobster in one go. Today, the older sister still wants to eat shrimp. It really puzzled him. Could it be that last night was all an illusion? In fact, it's the younger sister who doesn't like to eat shrimp. Tina saw him like this and thought he was not feeling well. Suddenly Joe Clark's phone rang. He glanced at it and immediately stood up, as if something terrible had happened. My stomach isn't feeling well, you guys go ahead and eat first. After a while, Tina received a text message from Joe Clark. Joe Clark forgot to bring paper. I'll go take some to him. 2 minutes later, Tina hurried back. At this moment, Joe Clark is sitting in a taxi on his way back to the hotel. It turns out that the younger sister in the hotel is feeling unwell in her stomach. She has been vomiting and having diarrhea all day. Joe Clark took pity on his sister and carried her to bed. Hold on a little longer. I'll go boil some hot water and get medicine for you. Just as he was about to get up, his sister grabbed his hand. I don't want to take medicine. Can you help me rub my stomach? Joe Clark had no choice but to sit back on the bed slowly and raise his hand. Your hand is so warm. I feel much better now. The girl wanted to accompany her sister and best friend to go shopping, so her sister could have a worry-free date with her boyfriend. After receiving careful attention from Joe Clark, the younger sister clearly felt much better. Joe Clark also told her about the rejected acquisition proposal. Both my boss and I want to make one more effort together, even if we end up with nothing in the end. As she spoke, the younger sister got up to change clothes. Today it's your turn to be with my sister. I have to hurry to change her back. Before Joe Clark could refuse, the younger sister immediately started changing into clothes matching those of her older sister. Do you think it's easy for two people to live as one? Sister, we had already agreed to take turns each day. You don't need to worry about my health. According to the location set by my sister. The two of them quickly arrived at the shopping mall where they were located. The princess exchange battle is about to begin. Meanwhile, the older sister and Huimin are still enthusiastically browsing through various women's clothing stores. Joe Clark and his younger sister are hiding on the side, monitoring in real time. They are planning to take action stealthily and secretly, swapping out the older sister without her noticing. Little did they know, it was actually Huimin who was with her older sister. The two hidden individuals are getting closer and closer. Without saying a word, Joe Clark grabbed his sister and ran straight to the other side. However, Huimin noticed something was not quite right out of the corner of her eye. I just saw Joe Clark running off with a woman earlier. Sister instantly understood what's going on. How could that be possible? Joe Clark is currently recuperating at the hotel. Luckily, a famous women's clothing store next door caught Huimin's attention. Indeed, if you want to stop a woman, it has to be clothes, shoes, and bags. Just then, the door of the fitting room on the other side slowly opened. A small, sneaky head peeped out from inside. The sister outside was dumbfounded when she saw it. I think the clothes in this store are quite ordinary. Let's go somewhere else to have a look. But Huimin is not giving face. I think it's pretty good. Turn around and walk to the side to start picking up clothes. The younger sister, seeing this, also started calling out to her sister nonstop, signaling her to come to the fitting room for a big surprise. Before long, Joe Clark's body also popped out. The two of them mischievously got excited. They united to scare their clueless sister. Unexpectedly, Huimin suddenly turned around. Tina, what do you think of this outfit? The girl immediately pretended to be calm. Your headlight is too big. Why don't you choose a few other styles? Huimin looked down at herself, feeling a bit confused. She then poked Tina next to her. Our headlights are similar. Let's not say who is better. After the alarm was lifted, the younger sister, along with Joe Clark, showed up again. Only to see her using sign language to constantly explain their plan. The older sister looked puzzled. Just thinking about not getting caught is essential. After a while, Huimin took the clothes. She ran to the mirror in the fitting room and measured them. There were only 4 people in the neighboring room. This made the 2 people in the room even hold their breath. Who is the jerk who designed the mirror on the door after all? The older sister outside the door immediately pushed Huimin into the changing room next to her. Buying or not buying is not important. What's important is to try it on first before deciding. After finishing everything, she was almost too weak to collapse on the ground. Her blood pressure skyrocketed from being scared. And the two sneaky ones inside the house had been waiting for a long time. At this time, Huimin, who had changed her clothes, came out and found that the surroundings were already empty. What style of clothes did you choose? Let me help you analyze it. And the next second, both of them spoke at the same time. Wait for me for a moment. I'll be ready in a second. Fortunately, the younger sister quickly changed her clothes and walked out. This shirt really pairs well with you. It seems like your car lights are getting brighter and brighter. Give a good compliment to Huimin. I feel a bit embarrassed. After saying that, Tina swiftly returned to the fitting room like a thunderbolt. You were sick, weren't you? Hurried back to the hotel. Outside the door, Huimin felt something was not right. What are you doing in there? Unexpectedly, the three of them replied in unison. Why is there still a man's voice inside? Aren't you afraid of me calling the police? Seeing this, the younger sister had no choice but to change her clothes and walk out. You misheard just now. Where could there be a man? Let's hurry up and go pay the bill. After a long time, the two people inside the room only then dared to walk out of the fitting room. The nearby waiters were a little confused. Didn't you just go out once? Joe Clark and Tina strolled on the street after leaving the mall. The two wandered to the entrance of Shaman University. The girl chuckled and took Joe Clark's hand, walking straight towards the gate. The security guard at the gate, on the other hand, showed no mercy and asked them to show their student IDs. This is the time to show the man's strong social skills. Joe Clark appeared as if he had seen his own brother. Big brother, do you still remember me? I was from the 14th cohort. You caught me sneaking out at night before. Tina's brain also worked quickly upon seeing the situation. Yes, Joe Clark, I remember that our class all said that you are a good person. As the saying goes, one glance at a beauty tells you whether or not it's true. Young people nowadays still value tradition. Remember to come out before you turn off the lights. The campus is filled with the atmosphere of knowledge and youth. Joe Clark couldn't help but sigh. Compared to the beatings in society, the days spent in school are like living a fairy tale. Students in college are basically divided into 4 stages. Freshmen in their first year of college walk around holding their phones wherever they go, enjoying the freedom of college life anytime, anywhere. Sophomores have already started their journey of courtship. Juniors are looking forward to making the most of their college life and starting to slack off. And seniors have begun, gradually exposed to the harsh realities of society. Job rejections and setbacks have made them suffer unbearably. Tina couldn't help but sigh as she watched the students coming and going. I'm fortunate to have you in my college life. But unexpectedly, their intimate actions attracted the dissatisfaction of many single dogs. Feeling the malicious intentions of the two people, they fled the scene like flying. The playground is filled with a strong youthful atmosphere. Just looking at it is enough to make one feel sentimental. Joe Clark slowly handed a fish ball to Tina. Do you want to eat it? The girl, however, looked shy. I want you to feed me. Joe Clark picked up a fish ball without saying a word and gulped it down. The next second, he hugged Tina. He deeply kissed her on the forehead. This is how I respond to you with your own method. Still remember the year during our senior year in college. My brothers and I were playing games in the internet cafe. If I ask you to hand me a bottle of drink, would you feed me with your mouth? As a result, that bro ended our friendship from then on. Saying that, Joe Clark's mouth kissed deeply again. But unexpectedly, Tina pushed him away, only to see the girl standing on the side in silence for a while. I'm a little tired. Let's go back. Love is not something that can be shared. Even if it's your own twin sister, it's the same. Because everyone hopes to have a memory that belongs only to two people. The two people sitting in the taxi late at night are lost in their own thoughts. Joe Clark wants to hold Tina's hand, but when she noticed, she pulled back. Soon after, Tina called. Tina hung up without even thinking about it. She got off the car and went straight into the hotel without saying a word. Joe Clark finally realized that the girl's mood was off as he watched her back. Just as he tried to catch up, his figure was noticed by Huimin at the door. Seeing this, the younger sister had no choice but to help him explain. Soon, Joe Clark caught up with Tina in front of the elevator. Do you know which floor the room is on to be running this fast? Tell me what's going on with you. Something has been off since just now. While Tina stood motionless in place, she remained silent. The atmosphere inside the elevator even startled the big uncle who had just come up. Joe Clark, who returned to the room, directly held down the girl and kissed her. Tina used all her strength to push him away. Joe Clark didn't know what he did wrong. He could only bow his head and keep apologizing. He slowly reached out to wipe away a tear from his younger sister's cheek. Did I do something to upset you? You can hit me or scold me. Joe Clark looked at his fingers. That teardrop proved his godliness. I've never seen you cry so sadly. Tina, on the other hand, turned her head to the side. It seemed like she couldn't speak the words when they were on the tip of her tongue. Joe Clark, however, could no longer control his emotions. Can you tell me why you are so sad? I just hope that the days you are with me can be happy. Or are you with me for Xiaomei? Is it because Xiaomei likes me that you have to be with me? Hearing this, Tina's expression finally softened. Just then, she threw herself into Joe Clark's arms. It's not like that. In fact, we all love you very, very much. You just need to know this. We will overcome the remaining issues. But Joe Clark is clearly not satisfied with this answer. If lovers cannot be honest with each other, how can they move towards the future? Saying this, Joe Clark suddenly raised his hand and slapped himself hard. I admit that being with both of you was taking advantage of the situation. But I really don't want to lose either of you. Upon hearing this, Tina slowly turned around. You swear that you won't tell little sister what you're about to say. Joe Clark, I love you very much. Very, very much. But do you love me? I love you no matter who is in trouble, always eager to help with a warm heart. I also love your silly look when you choke while eating. Even more, I love every hug you give me. But you love me. Or maybe it's my younger sister. Or are you saying you love both of us? Tina, the one you pretended to be. All along, both my younger sister and I have been sharing the same memories. But I also want a set of memories that only belong to me. A set of memories that only belong to the two of us. Little sister doesn't know. Memories that no one else knows about. It was not me who suggested to dress up as one person. But I sacrificed myself and became another person. I don't blame my younger sister. I just want a memory that belongs to me. At this moment, Hui Min's voice came from outside the door. Tina heard the sound and immediately opened the door and ran out. Their previous conversation was obviously overheard by Xiaomei. The outcome of having a pair of twin girlfriends is just pacifying the sad older sister. Turning his head, he had to go and coax his temperamental younger sister. The younger sister overheard the conversation between Joe Clark and the two people, and ran into the elevator as if she had gone crazy. When the few people caught up to the hotel lobby, the person had already disappeared. Tina looked at Joe Clark's anxious expression, feeling somewhat disappointed in her heart. Indeed, is he still concerned about his younger sister? The three of them searched the nearby streets like crazy, looking for the younger sister. But in such a huge city, it's difficult to find her. Searching for one person is undoubtedly like finding a needle in a haystack. Suddenly, Joe Clark fished out his phone. I almost forgot about this wonderful thing called a phone. When I answered the call, it was actually my sister's voice on the other end. When he realized he needed to use QQ voice chat. But my younger sister hung up without any hesitation. Suddenly Huimin seemed to remember something. In a strange city, she would definitely go to places she had been before. If we're talking about the most familiar place, it must be the taxi on Kalangsu where Huimin took a glance at Joe Clark in the front seat where they had their first kiss. Then she took a look at Tina on the side as well. There seemed to be 10,000 questions in her heart, waiting for them to be answered. The driver saw Joe Clark going out late at night with two beautiful women and praised his brother for being so lucky. Tina seemed to have also noticed Huimin's concerns. Let's find Xiaomei first. I will explain everything to you in full later. The current Joe Clark is still unsure about who he truly loves. But only children make choices. He loves both women. After searching for an hour, they still had nothing to show for it. At this point, Huimin still stood by her own viewpoint. When we came to Xiamen, did you all go anywhere else? Joe Clark and Tina looked at each other. Then Tina softly spoke. Return to Guaning Rock, Zhengchenglong Memorial Hall, the literary and artistic small shop on Manhwa Road. Suddenly Joe Clark thought of something. There's also a piano museum. You also mentioned wanting to have your own piano. Tina slowly got up upon hearing this. It seemed she already had an idea in her heart. I will go to Nanhua Road with Huimin. You go to the piano museum. I believe you will definitely gain something there. Joe Clark dared not be the slightest bit negligent. Soon, I arrived at the place in my memory. In the distance, a little girl was curling up by the fountain, hugging her knees. Joe Clark approached and cleared his throat softly. Then he made an effort to squeeze out a smile that wasn't too awkward. But before he could speak, his little sister interrupted him. I knew you would find your way here, she said. By now, the younger sister's feet were completely dirty. Don't come over. Just stand there, don't talk, and don't move. After saying that, the younger sister buried her head again. I'm actually afraid that you can find me. But I'm also afraid that you can't find me. While speaking, tears streamed down the face. It was obvious that it was my sister who liked you first at that time. You have no idea how much I dislike you. But for the sake of my sister, I have to live with you. In the end, you got a big advantage. Saying that, the young girl beckoned Joe Clark to her side. I have also struggled with whether you truly love me. But later I realized that no matter who you love, it's all of us. Joe Clark stood still not saying a word. He just gently held the girl's feet in his hands. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I didn't realize what you were feeling inside. Only caring about my own feelings, I have neglected all of you. The little sister jumped into Joe Clark's arms and cried uncontrollably at this moment. After a while, the little sister suddenly stopped crying and pushed Joe Clark aside. I'm fine now. Don't follow me. Go back immediately and stay with your sister now. Never deceive a woman casually, especially if she is a beauty with great looks and figure. It is not okay to deceive even if it is done together with your girlfriend. Joe Clark found Huimin after bidding farewell to his younger sister. Let's go back first. My younger sister is fine now. But Huimin still stood motionless in the same place. Both of you fucking stay where you are. The two of them were immediately scared by this shout and stopped their steps. I've been accompanying you two searching all night. Isn't it time for you to give me an explanation? At this moment, Huimin has completely entered a frenzied state. The two unlucky fellows stood still, not daring to even turn around, afraid that they might meet with misfortune at any moment. Turn around and face me right now. Tina, seeing the situation, dared not say more. She immediately turned around and faced Huimin. The turn was made, but it seemed not to be complete. Joe Clark, in particular, did not respond directly at all. I ran for half a day, and I'm too tired. I must lie down and rest for a while. The two girls were stunned at that moment. That's what men are like. Tina is not doing well at the moment. Why is such a tricky situation being pushed onto me? Facing the approaching sharp-witted person, the girl's whole body started shaking involuntarily. "You said, who is my good sister Tina after all? It seems like Joe Clark also knows about this matter. Am I the only one who doesn't know, right? So you guys never treated me as a good girlfriend. I was the clown all along." Don't listen to the turtle chanting. "You have deeply hurt me. The only thing that can control a woman is another woman." Tina stepped forward and hugged Huimin from behind. "I'm sorry, Huimin. It's all our fault." Before finishing the sentence, the girl burst out laughing. "I think I already know why you did this." He took a quick glance at Joe Clark lying on the ground. "Aren't you cold lying there?" he said, as he planted his foot on Joe Clark's face. "Hurry up and get up. Your acting skills are really terrible." So, chatter. Blah blah. The two of them recounted the whole story from beginning to end. Unexpectedly, Huimin had a smile on her face. "Having another close sister like you makes me happy beyond words. Unfortunately, it just takes advantage of certain people. One radish takes up two holes. The good cabbage has been snatched by the pig indeed. What can Joe Clark do? He's innocent too. If it weren't for having good kidneys, who could endure it?" This made Tina blush involuntarily. The girl picked up the grilled squid on the table and stuffed Joe Clark wildly. Huimin also looked on with interest and didn't mind the commotion. Joe Clark said you often watch Japanese adult films together. By the way, have you also watched it? Tina tried to keep her face calm. But in reality, Joe Clark's thigh is already bruised. The expression on his face seemed to be telling Joe Clark that he was in big trouble when he got back tonight. After the revelation, Huimin finally felt relieved. "No wonder you are sometimes quiet and sometimes wild. I thought you had split personality disorder. So why did Xiaomei become so sad?" The two sitting across from each other look at each other in silence, as if each of them feels responsible for the situation. Don't push them to be insightful if they're not willing. Go back to the hotel and rest early. We have to catch an early flight back tomorrow. What should you do if you are suddenly attacked at your own doorstep? Joe Clark, who had just landed, didn't hesitate at all and immediately ran home. At this moment, he just wants to hurry back to check on his little sister's situation. He also didn't forget to buy a fresh flower for his little sister on the way. Attempting to save a life in an emergency situation. Joe Clark, standing at the door, was extremely nervous. It took him half a day before he slowly reached out his hand to tentatively knock on the door. But the only response he received was endless silence. Finally, he mustered up the courage to open the door and walked in. The room was as silent as death, as if his little sister had never returned. Joe Clark hurriedly ran into the bedroom upon seeing the situation. However, the room was still empty. Suddenly, he remembered the room that belonged only to his little sister. He rushed to the door in 2 or 3 steps. But Joe Clark hesitated again. He could be seen putting his ear against the door to listen to the sound. Before he could react, the phone rang first. It was Tina, who was still in Xiamen at the moment. "Little sister hasn't come back yet. Did she say anything to you?" After a while, Joe Clark spoke again. "When will you come back?" Tina looked at the red wine in the cup, seeming like she had something to say but hesitated. "Things are almost done. I am planning to return tomorrow." Joe Clark, who got the answer, was at a loss for a moment on how to continue the conversation. "I bought vegetables in the fridge before going on a business trip. Don't eat takeout, okay?" After hanging up the phone, Joe Clark fell into endless silence once again. He was stunned when he opened the fridge at home. Inside, it was filled with fresh vegetables and fruits. There were also notes, handwritten by Tina. Joe Clark's tears fell onto the paper unintentionally. It's all his fault for being so foolish to hurt 2 girls at the same time. Suddenly, the doorbell rang in the house. Joe Clark ran frantically towards the living room. He thought it was his younger sister coming back. Suddenly, As soon as the door opened, the woman rushed towards him. Joe Clark was confused at that moment. Whose wild girl is this? The girl opened her mouth slowly the next second and said, "Have you been waiting for me for a long time? Do you miss me a lot?" Joe Clark was confused at that moment. "You've got the wrong door, sister," he said. "If you're looking for breakdancing, you've got the wrong guy." He said it without hesitation and promptly shut the door on the girl. That was really close. I almost made a mistake. However, the continuous knocking on the door outside showed no sign of stopping. Joe Clark couldn't bear it anymore. There's no need to put up with it any longer. I've already told you I have no money, so what am I doing here? In the end, he didn't expect that this girl was even more formidable. "I'll give you 30 seconds to figure out who I am. Otherwise, I'll make sure you leave with nothing to eat." After saying that, the girl carried the suitcase and walked straight into the house. "Originally, I wanted to surprise you." Joe Clark's CPU went crazy when he heard this. The girl looked kindly at him. "Have you finally remembered, little Joe?" she said with a smile as she sat down slowly. "Are these flowers not for me? I'm officially returning to my home country starting today. Didn't your mom and my second aunt tell you?" As she spoke, the girl slung Joe Clark over her shoulder. "Your mom even patted her chest and told me to entrust everything to you. Come over quickly and let big sister give you a kiss. And your girlfriend has also agreed to let me stay here. Do you think my psychology major is useless? And the younger sister did it voluntarily. She told me everything between you." Joe Clark was completely figured out at that time. Since Tina agreed, I have no objection. Joe Clark is an epitome of feeling like crying but having no tears. Heaven, please send someone to take this monster away. He is truly a legendary monster-in-law. He even wants to marry both his twin daughters to the same man. Joe Clark, who is controlled by his cousin, is completely devastated. But his misfortune is clearly just beginning. Tina's parents and your parents are waiting for you to have dinner together. Joe Clark was confused at that time. No one informed him about this. And he finally understood. Today, it was obvious that his cousin came to pick him up. Standing at the door of the private room, Joe Clark couldn't help but hesitate. Because he hasn't figured out yet how to get along with Tina's parents. But his cousin doesn't pay much attention to that. He pushed open the door and walked in directly. "Sorry to keep you all waiting. I brought the leading man for today." Only the family was seen inside the room. They were joyfully chatting and enjoying each other's company. Upon seeing the situation, the little sister immediately stood up. "Cousin, why did you come so late? We have been waiting for you for a long time." It seems intentional to leave Joe Clark on the side. Joe Clark's parents are obviously very pleased with this future daughter-in-law. Tina's parents also have a good impression of this son-in-law. This young man is brave and resourceful. I have heard my daughter praise you a lot. Joe Clark instantly felt it. A chilling murderous intent rose behind him. Tina is also very good. She always takes special care of me. Tina's mom also quickly took over the conversation when she saw the situation.